Greetings builders, Daniel here and welcome to another Meta Builds video. Today I'll show you 3 builds that are among the most played in the third week of the Trial of the Ancestors League. If you decide to make any of those, you can find links for POBs and complete guides in the video description. The first build we're gonna see today is the top meta, and it's being played by over 10% of high level players. It's the incredibly strong Lightning Arrow Deadeye with the Ranger class. Even though Vengeance Cascade was nerfed, the introduction of the returning projectile support gem kept this build super fast and strong, which caused most of players to choose it. During last league, I released the Lightning Arrow guide that needed some expensive unique items, and this time I'm going to make it different. On this guide, you'll find 2 versions of this build, a budget and a complete one. Each one has its own POB and passive tree, so you can start this build even on a low budget and upgrade it later. To list the pros of this build, I'm not sure if I would start with its clear speed or boss damage, because both are amazing. This build is also not complicated to put together. I totally recommend you to try it out. Now, to list the cons, I would say that this build is not very tanky. Even though you have some defensive layers, it's important to take advantage of your ranged attacks and stay far from danger. If you don't mind your position, you might die. About the budget, you can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 80 chaos. To comfortable advance to yellow maps, I recommend investing around 150 chaos, and for easily completing your atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines. But if you go for the complete version, you need to invest at least 4 more divines. Don't forget that on PoEbuilds.net you can find a list with all the equipment that you need to buy for this build, with direct links for examples being sold by other players. On the budget version, you only need 1 mandatory unique item for this build, the Yoke of Suffering amulet that causes all of your elemental damage to shock. This way our enemies take a lot more damage. On the complete version, on the other hand, besides the Yoke of Suffering, you also need the Lionized Fall and the Thread of Hope unique jewels. They are expensive but grant a huge boost to your damage. For clear speed, I'll give it 10 out of 10. You fire many projectiles with high attack speed, and those projectiles return to you, pierce enemies, bounce off walls and go everywhere. No one can survive that. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 10 out of 10. Using 2 Val Lightning Arrows plus your ballistas on bosses will kill them so fast that you won't believe it. For the survivability, I'll give this build 8 out of 10. Even though you have armor, evasion, spell suppression and can kill enemies from a good distance, this build isn't very tanky. If you don't mind your position, you might die. Next, we have another highly popular build that has been chosen by over 8% of high level players, the simple and powerful Hexblast Mine Sabotura with the Shadow class. Hexblast is a very interesting skill that deals a lot of extra damage if the enemy it hits is already cursed. Besides that, it also creates a big pulse of damage that destroys all nearby monsters. That's why it's important that our enemies are always cursed. To list the pros of this build, I would start with how powerful it gets with low investment. With cheap and easy to find items, we're going to make bosses disappear with your mind chain reactions. Part of that is because Hexblast can naturally shock, freeze and ignite enemies. And if that wasn't good enough, it also considers the lowest resistance the enemy has before calculating the damage. This build is also very fast and deals a lot of area damage. It's super satisfying to clear maps this way. Above all, you can throw your mines from a long distance and stay far from danger. Now to list the cons, I will start saying that mine gameplay isn't for everyone. Some players just can't get used to the detonation mechanic, but trust me, it's worth giving a try because mine builds have huge potential. Another issue is that this character is not very tanky. Because of that, you need to always mind your position or you might die. As for budget, this build is cheap. You can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 70 chaos. To comfortable advance to yellow maps, I recommend investing around 150 chaos, and for easily completing your atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines. You only need 1 mandatory unique item for this build, the Profane Proxy Ring that causes one of your Skither bots to have a curse aura. This way, the enemies you hit with your Hexblast are always going to trigger the big area damage, increasing a lot your clear speed. For clear speed, I'll give this build 9 out of 10. You are very fast and your mines explode in a big area, killing many monsters at once. It's very comfortable to clear maps with this character. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 9 out of 10. You can stack many mines and delete bosses with a huge detonation. This build has an incredible single target potential, even on a low budget. For the survivability, I'll give it 8 out of 10. Even though you have armor, evasion, spell suppression and can throw your mines from a big distance, this build is still not very tanky and needs to stay still from time to time to deploy the mines. That's why I took 2 points out. Finally, we have another build that many players chosen to complete the game, the super fun Mage Skeleton's Guardian with the Templar class. On this build we use the unique Geo Dead Reckoning to transform our regular skeletons into mage ones. They fire elemental projectiles at a huge range and deal tons of damage. To list the pros of this build, I would start with survivability. With the Guardian Ascendancy you get almost 75% chance to block attacks and spells, a huge life regeneration and the new Sentinel of Radiance that takes 20% of the damage for you. All of that combined with the fact that this is a minion build that is very safe to play, because you stay behind your minions and they can kill enemies from a big distance. Also, with the new elemental relic, you and your minions get 3 damage auras totally for free, resulting in a great boss damage. Now to list the cons, I will start saying that mage skeletons don't move, they feel more like a totem build. For that reason, you need to keep resummoning them while clearing maps. The Guardian Ascendance also doesn't get a speed boost from flash offering like the Necromancer, so it's a little bit slower. Above all, when comparing to the Necromancer, this version also doesn't get that awesome 30% to all elemental resistance for you and your minions. This might cause your zombies and specters to die from elemental damage if you don't look for minion resistance on your rare gear. As for budget, this build is not expensive at all. You can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 80 chaos. To comfortable advance to yellow maps, I recommend investing around 150 chaos, and for easily completing retros I recommend investing around 4 divines, but you can totally do it with less. You only need one mandatory unique item for this build, the Dead Reckoning Jewel that turns your regular skeletons into mage ones. For clear speed I'll give it 8 out of 10. You have many skeletons firing many projectiles at a high cast speed rate. I took 2 points out because the mage skeletons don't move and you need to keep resummoning them, and also because the Guardian does not get the flash offering speed boost like the Necromancer. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 9 out of 10. With the new returning projectile support gem, 100% of projectiles will hit enemies twice, but since it's not as powerful as the nerfed anomalous faster projectiles, I took 1 point out. For the survivability I'll give it 10 out of 10. This build has a big load of defensive layers such as high armor, 75% chance to block attacks and spells, a minion that takes 20% of the damage for you, and since it's a minion build, you are far from danger all the time. And that's it for today guys. Are you playing any of those meta builds? Please take a second to tell me in the comments and leave a thumbs up to support the channel. I wish you guys an amazing day, and don't forget to keep building!